Let me start with a simple thought. Everything is negotiable. From the roles we take on, to the value we create, to the outcomes we achieve, negotiation is at the heart of it all. Today, we explore a skill that shapes careers, builds relationships, and drives results. Because whether we realize it or not, we negotiate every day in meetings, in decisions, in opportunities. But negotiation is not just about getting what you want, it's about understanding value, building trust, and creating outcomes that work for everyone. And today, we'll explore how to do it not just confidently, but strategically. Though the real question is, are we doing it effectively? A very good evening to everyone, and welcome to the University of Manchester Dubai third installment of the Masterclass series this season. My name is Joseph Magnola. It is a pleasure to have all of you. This series, by the way, is designed to give you a real taste of the thinking, the conversations, and the insights that shape today's global business leaders. And today's session is no exception. Welcome to the Negotiation Skills Masterclass. But before we begin, let's take a moment to explore the University of Manchester, not just a university, but as a dynamic city, a world class institution, and a truly global network shaping ideas, innovation, and impact across the world. Committed to world class research, exceptional teaching and learning, and a strong sense of social responsibility, the University of Manchester has built a legacy that goes far beyond education. For over 200 years since its establishment in 1824, the university has played a pivotal role in shaping ideas, industries, in the world around us. As a proud member of the Russell Group and one of the UK's largest and most respected institutions, Manchester stands at the forefront of innovation and impact. Home to 26 Nobel Prize winners and has been the birthplace of groundbreaking discoveries from splitting the atom to the discovery of graphene. Today, that legacy continues to be recognized globally, with the university consistently ranked amongst the top in the UK, Europe, and the world. And in business education, it stands amongst the very best, with triple accreditation from AMBA, AACSB, and EQUIS, placing it in the top 1% of business schools worldwide. But beyond the rankings and achievements, what truly defines Manchester is its purpose to develop individuals who don't just respond to change, but lead it. The University of Manchester has consistently led the way in global higher education, not just through academic excellence, but through its real world impact. Since the rankings began in 2019, the University of Manchester has been a standout performer. In fact, we are proud to be the only university globally to have ranked in the top 10 every single year, first in the UK, first in Europe, and second in the world, a reflection of our long term commitment to creating positive social and environmental change. Here in the Middle East, the University of Manchester established its presence in Dubai Knowledge Park in 2006. Today, we are proudly celebrating our 20 years of excellence, stronger together. At the heart of this journey is our people. We're a truly diverse and global community, bringing together individuals from different backgrounds, industries, and perspectives, united by a shared ambition to grow and make an impact. Through our strong, engaged alumni network, we continue to build meaningful connections that extend beyond the classroom and into the wider professional community. As a key hub within Alliance Manchester Business Schools International Network, we are part of the global presence spanning major cities across Shanghai, Singapore, Hong Kong, and anchored by our home campus in Manchester. Our programs are designed to support professionals at every stage of their journey, from specialized master's degrees to globally recognized MBA programs and executive education. Most recently, we have achieved an important milestone with institutionalized licensure from the UAE Ministry of Higher Education and full program accreditation, reinforcing our commitment to quality and excellence. A proud moment and a reflection of the standards we continue to uphold. Now, if you're not yet ready to commit to a longer program or a 2 year program, the University of Manchester Executive Education offers a flexible alternative. Designed for managers and leaders, these courses are delivered through intensive face to face session over just 4 to 5 days, making them practical and time efficient. You can take each course individually and work towards a Manchester professional diploma in leadership by completing a series of courses. Each one also comes with a digital badge to recognize your achievement. And currently, there's a 15% discount available across all executive education courses, making it ideal time to get started. Kindly see the upcoming courses. I will allow a few seconds to scan the QR code for more information and also to avail a 15% off. All right. And now let's meet our guests for today, a very, very special one who will enlighten us more in the world of negotiations. He is a partner at BGI Law and head of its litigation department with extensive experience in administrative, urban, and labor law. He has advised leading corporations and public institutions on complex real estate, infrastructure, and corporate disputes, and has successfully handled cases before Spain's highest courts. In addition to his legal practice, he teaches negotiation skills at Alliance Manchester Business School and delivers executive training globally. He also served as an honorary consul of Kazakhstan in Andalusia, Palides, and yes. And ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor to welcome Professor Óscar Gómez Monasterio. Professor, a very good evening to you, sir.
Hello, good evening, Josen, and thank you very much for this nice introduction. And it's obviously, as always, a pleasure for me to lecture in the University of Manchester in the business school. And
It
every
is.
time that I see, and I see always when I go there, every time that I see that we have 26 Nobel Prizes, I feel a lot of pressure. Always, a lot of pressure.
It is
So,
a.
uh,
This is
so
an
it's
absolute pleasure, Professor Óscar. It's an absolute pleasure from our end. Thank you for accepting our invitation, sir.
And it's also for me, as I said, for me delivering this kind of lectures is always interesting. As you said, I'm delivering this the module of negotiation skills in the MBA now for quite a long time. I've been delivering all around the world executive education. Recently, I was in Hong Kong. I've been many times in Singapore, in Brazil. I don't know, in many, many places. It's a very interesting subject, okay? And if we can move on, I will start just
Yes.
sharing my screen, okay?
Go ahead, sir.
So,
And for everybody, if you want to have question to Professor Óscar, please use the chat box later on as we conclude this presentation, and we will be more than happy to answer those questions. Professor, back to you, sir.
yeah. Okay, so this is my objective today. Okay, can you see that, Josen?
It's loading, sir. There you go. I think there you go. We have it
Okay.
now. Go ahead, please.
So, first of all, as Josen mentioned, if you have a, I would like to see because I like to interact with all of you. It's the same that I do in the business school and the same that when I'm lecturing in executive education. So, please use the chat box during my lecture. And also, I will give you 15 minutes when I finish of Q&A because it's the best way to learn negotiations is to share experience, to ask questions. It's the best way. And also, it's also for me nice because I can answer questions and make it more interesting for you. So, when they were asking me to deliver a 45 minutes lecture, I was thinking, what can I do that could be useful for them in 45 minutes? Okay, because obviously negotiation skills is a very wide subject. And for example, when we do it in the MBA, It's a workshop of 3 days non-stop, okay? And even with 3 days, we don't have enough. So I was thinking, okay, let's try to make something that you can get value from of these 45 minutes. And because I'm always very practical when I am lecturing, I thought that these three topics that you see there are the most useful ones for you. In other words, I want you to change a bit the way that you negotiate before attending this lecture and the way that you negotiate after the lecture. Okay? So, this is my final decision about that. And I included these three topics. Steps of the negotiation process. So, I will give you a process to negotiate. This is crucial, really important. Why it's so important? Because this is a very common mistake to negotiate without following a proper process. If you are dealing in any other subject in your companies, if you are dealing with finance, with procurement, with HR, with labor, you always have a process in your company to follow, right? Mandatory processes. When we negotiate in big corporations, they also have a mandatory process when they negotiate. And this is what I'm going to explain you now. And this is one of the main things that you can get from this lecture. Because when you follow a process to negotiate that is very standard, and you can see in professional negotiators, in corporations, in anywhere in the world who are very well trained in negotiations, they follow the same one, the same process. Using that, for sure, you will get better results. Number two, BATNA and interest matrix. Every single time that you negotiate, you must, and it's a must, you must make a proper analysis and assessment of these two topics that I will come back to them. Okay, so BATNA and interest matrix. And finally, the third topic that I was planning to give you, and that could be also useful, is how to create a tactical plan. A tactical plan is like a guide for your negotiation. So it's a guide that you have to follow like a checklist in order that you go to the negotiations properly prepared, because preparation is the first rule of the negotiations. To have a good outcome is be properly prepared. Okay, so I will go through these three topics, and if we have time, only if we have time when we finish, I will also share with you another example of a case. It's a very simple example to illustrate another topic that is interesting, that is how to see the difference between integrative and distributive negotiations. But this is only if we have time. So, moving on, let's start with the process to negotiate. Just 1 second, because I think it's loading the presentation. Yes. So I want to start with the process. Okay, moving on. The process of negotiations is split into 5 steps, and these 5 steps you should always follow, okay? Always follow. The first step is team selection and preparation of the negotiation. As I said before, preparation is the key of success. To go into a negotiation and prepare is not a good choice. Okay, it's not a good choice. Then step two is the exchanging information phase. And this is a quite common mistake, because sometimes we see negotiations when negotiators goes from step one directly to step three, or even without step one directly to step three. So the step two is crucial, and I will come back to that. Step three is opening the negotiation. Is when we begin to make offers and counter offers. When you put your offer on the table, or when the other side starts with his offer, is what we call the step three of the negotiation. When you begin to negotiate and to develop your strategy and your tactics. Step four is when you close the negotiation, is the last phase of the negotiation, and in this phase, we always see very tricky tactics, okay? And it's also very important to gain commitment for the future, okay, to implement the deal. And finally, the step five is the review process. So to review and to understand what you have learned from that negotiation. So when we discuss this topic about the process to negotiate, we always talk about that topic, information asymmetry. This is very important to understand how negotiation works. Negotiation is a game of information, right? Everything is about information. At the beginning, and this is why at the beginning in the number 1, you see the line of information asymmetry very high. At the beginning of the negotiation, we don't have that much information about the other side, about the other priorities, alternatives, targets, objectives. We don't know that many about the other side. And also we protect our information and we don't release information about us. What are our alternatives or our interests in the negotiation, right? So this is what we call information asymmetry. At the beginning of the negotiation, this is very high. We don't know many things about the other side. The other side doesn't know many things about us. During the process of the negotiation, in every negotiation, this information asymmetry is going down gradually. Because during the process, you are gaining information and you are also delivering and disclosing information to the other side. Sometimes consciously, on purpose, sometimes unconsciously. You can provide information without even you knowing that you are doing it, okay? And you can make it through many, many ways, okay? The body language, the wording, the framing, the way that we behave are also ways to release information to the other side. So, as I said, in step 1, in preparation, the information asymmetry is very high. It goes down gradually. If the information asymmetry is not going down, the deal is almost impossible. The only moment when the deal becomes possible is when both parties are sharing enough information. So, preparation is the first step of the negotiation. How we do prepare the negotiation? I will explain it now because it's very important. And obviously, when we prepare the negotiation, after the step 1, the information asymmetry should be lower, okay? So, step 1, and this is the topic that I mentioned before, that could be very useful, could be no, will be very useful for you in your next negotiations. Try to follow this the next time that you negotiate and you will see the difference, okay? Moving on. Preparation. Before every single negotiation, there are few things that you must do. And by the way, I will also use examples during the lecture, and maybe I will use a very interesting example that we can see in the global environment nowadays, okay? So, what do you have to do when you have to prepare a negotiation? We have a preparation template. In the business school, we provide them a template and also a checklist, the same that you can see here. Obviously, because we have more time, it's more developed with more information, but it's like that, like you can see here. As I said, like a checklist. First thing that you have to do before you enter into a negotiation, you must identify what kind of negotiation you are going to face. Why? Because we have different types of negotiations, and depending on the type, you have to adapt your strategies. You can, for example, face a single issue negotiation that you only negotiate one topic. For example, price. I'm selling the house. Price. You only negotiate one topic. But you also have what we call multiple issue negotiations, and they are more complex. Is when you have to negotiate different issues. For example, price, delivery, guarantee, volume, payment terms, all of these things, okay? So in that case, it's a multiple issue negotiation. And also, it is very important to see the difference between integrative negotiations, and these ones are the negotiations where you can create value in the negotiation to make the pie bigger, to put more value on the table, or the distributive negotiations that we also call zero-sum negotiations, where it's purely distributive, where you cannot put more value, you cannot create value, okay? We will go back to that point to see the difference between integrative and distributive. Then, Number two, in negotiations. Please, we go into now the main topic, one of the main topics. Assess each side's partner, that is the alternative, and also your reservation value, that is the minimum that you may accept or the maximum, depending on the situation where you will be negotiating in that negotiation, okay? So is the, for example, if you are selling the house, what is the minimum price that you may accept for selling the house, okay? If you are buying, you can start with an offer, but you also have in your mind what is the maximum price that you may pay for that house. This is what we call reservation values, your limits to the negotiation, okay? So you have to do before you enter into a negotiation, your alternatives, your reservation values, and the zone, the SOPA, that we call the zone of possible agreement. Then number three, and I will come back to these topics to explain it later, okay? Number three, you have to create an interest matrix. And I will give you now an example. Number four, before you go into a negotiation, take your time and decide who will be in the negotiation. And this is a crucial part of your decisions, okay? Because the team composition can be the key of the success or sometimes of the failure of the negotiation. There are many elements that you have to consider if you are going to negotiate alone or within a team. We always recommend a team. Then you need to consider cultural differences, very important topic, okay? Because nowadays we negotiate from, with companies from different parts of the world, different country, different culture, and this is very important. Hierarchy is also important to decide, depending on the other side, your expertise as well. So all of these elements must influence your decision about who will be in the negotiation team. Then, look at this. The underlying words that I mentioned there in the point number 5 of the preparation template. Relationships, reputation, emotions. Those three elements are also very important. When you have to negotiate, you need to think if the relationship with the other side is important or not that important. For example, a negotiation between the company and the staff, the union, a labor negotiation. Obviously, relationships are important because you have to keep working together. If you are going to negotiate internally in your company between two departments, procurement and finance, for example, yes, the relationships are very important. Between a manufacturer and a supplier, again, it's important. If you're going to sell your car, you don't mind. I mean, you don't care about the relationship with the buyer, okay? So again, as I said, it's very important to bear in mind how important is the relationship in play, because depending on that, you have to choose your strategies. Reputation is also very important for you as a negotiator and also for your company. So it's your individual and also your company. This is very important to consider before you take any step in the negotiation. And also how emotions can influence the negotiation. Emotions are present in negotiations, right? And we can see that in the news nowadays quite often, unfortunately, okay? So emotions can derail a whole negotiation, okay? So it's another element that you have to work with. Then number 6 of your preparation template, assess your leverage. So before you go into a negotiation, you have to assess, am I in a strong position or in a weak position? And also very important, these are perceptions, okay? Because it's an assessment. You can start a negotiation thinking that you are very weak, but maybe you are not that weak, okay? But it's also very important. Sit down, prepare, and think. Are we in a good situation, in a strong situation? Do we have leverage or not? Based on that, you have to decide your strategy. Then, finally, as I said, and as we are doing now, very important, prepare and write the tactical plan, okay? This tactical plan, apart from these 6 elements that we are discussing now, you have to do what we mentioned there. List the issues in order of importance. As I said before, if you are discussing, for example, price, payment terms, and delivery, you have to list them in order of importance for you. including what is your objective, what is your reservation value, and what is going to be your opening offer. Okay, for example, if we are talking about price, you have to start. My target is that price. I will open the negotiation with that price. My reservation value is that price. Okay, this is a very useful tool when you negotiate with all of the topics. Then, in negotiation, we work with assumptions and with information, but most of them are assumptions because I have to assume what is the other side's BATNA, the alternative, or what are the other side's main concerns. So these kind of things are assumptions. You have to list down all of them and then think about ways to test them, to check during the negotiation if those assumptions are right or wrong. For example, if you think, I assume that for them, the delivery is the key in the negotiation. Okay, how can I test that? That delivery is more important than price. Asking questions, but not direct questions, indirect questions, okay? Or during step 2. And then, again, in the tactical plan, you have to include your strategies and tactics for the negotiation. So, as I said, we are in step 1, preparing the negotiation, right? For the next negotiation that you will face, try to follow this template to prepare your negotiation properly. But to do that, obviously, I need to explain the main topics. What is BATNA and what is interest? So, moving on to the main topic. As I said, this is the very first topic of your negotiation template, of your tactical plan. What is the BATNA? The BATNA is a very common mistake that I see in real negotiations and also during my lectures and the workshops when they are practicing or making case studies in the business school, because this is a very common mistake. There are two mistakes. To go into the negotiation without having a clear picture about what is your alternative, and number 2, making a wrong assessment of your BATNA, okay? The BATNA is the alternative to that negotiation. Okay, so it's to go elsewhere. Is what you may do if you don't reach an agreement. Is that clear? It's not another offer to the same company that you have in front. This is not your BATNA. Your BATNA is what you may do if you break the negotiation and go elsewhere. For example, let's think about something very simple. You are a manufacturer and you have to negotiate with one of your suppliers that we call supplier A. If you don't reach an agreement with supplier A, what would be your BATNA? What do you think? And now I want to see how you text things in the chat box. If you are the manufacturer, you don't reach an agreement, you are negotiating with supplier A, let's say a price of 30K. What is your BATNA in that negotiation if you don't reach an agreement? What is your walk-away position? Let me see the chat box. Come on, more comments. I can see exactly. Perfect. Exactly. Supplier B. Exactly. If you are dealing with supplier A that has a price of 30K and you don't reach an agreement, you go to supplier B. So then what happens? This is going to give you the leverage in the negotiation. If supplier B can produce or can provide the same component, for example, with a similar price and similar quality, do you have leverage in the negotiation with supplier A? Are you strong in the negotiation? Yes or no? Exactly. Yes. Yes. Why? Because you have a strong alternative. I can push in the negotiation because I have supplier B waiting outside. Is that clear? So this is why to make a proper assessment of the BATNA is so important. Let's do it the other way. You are the supplier and you have to negotiate with a big corporation who is the manufacturer, who has a lot of suppliers like you waiting to have a contract with them. So if you are the supplier, what is your BATNA? Come on, let me know. What is your BATNA? I want to see answers in the chat box. It's more difficult. No, it's not that difficult. If you are the supplier, no, it's not the terms. Exactly, exactly. We have here a different buyer. Exactly. So your BATNA is if you are supplier A and you are negotiating with company, let's say company X, if you don't reach an agreement, you need to look for another buyer, is another manufacturer to sell to someone else, right? This is your BATNA. The BATNA is a course of action, okay? It's the course of action. It's something that you may do. And if you don't have, if you are the supplier and you don't have any other potential client, or you don't have such a big client that this manufacturer, your leverage is low. Okay? This is very important. So you need to assess your leverage based on your partner. Another example, you are going to a recruitment process, right? And you are the recruiter, the company. You are going to have an interview with a candidate. If you are the company, what is your partner? What do you think? Let me see in the chat box. Another candidate, exactly. Another candidate. And for the candidate would be another company. So depending on that, you have to make the assessment of your partner. You have to identify my alternative is, as I said before, if I am the manufacturer, my alternative is supplier B. Is the supplier B has the same quality, similar terms, similar price? This is your assessment of your partner. Based on that, you have more or less leverage, okay? Obviously, in real life, for example, BATNA is the best alternative to a negotiated agreement, okay? Then, when you are going to face a conflict in your company, you have a conflict, for example, with the staff, with the union. And now we go to most difficult areas to assess the BATNA. What is your BATNA if you don't reach an agreement with the union in a labor dispute? What do you think it is or could be? Comments in the chat box? What is your BATNA in a conflict? Ahmed is saying court, Victoria Tribunal, court, exactly. It could be obviously mediation or arbitration as well, depending on the area. But exactly is that. If I don't reach an agreement, maybe I will end up in court. And in that situation, how do you assess your partner? Okay, it's more difficult when you face a conflict because it's more difficult to make an assessment. Do I have a strong partner or not? Then, yes, Muhammad is asking me if both parties have their own partner. Of course, okay. Uh, then, what he's asking is interesting, Muhammad, because what happens if the other side knows your partner, or if you know the other side's partner? And let me know, is that interesting for you if you are negotiating to know the other side's partner? What do you think? Is interesting or not? Let me know in the chat. Yes, a stronger position, really a strong position. Exactly. This is why we hide our partner. We don't disclose our partner because information is very important. But obviously, do you think that sometimes could be good to disclose your partner to the other side? Could be interesting or not? Depending on the scenario, maybe yes. But the general rule is no, okay? And now I'm going to ask you, before I move on to the interest matrix, because I see that this concept is clear. Let's talk about the conflict nowadays between Iran and the US. And now I want you to write down the badness of both sides in the negotiation that they are having or not having, because now that we don't know, it looks like they are having negotiations. But let me know, what is the badness of Iran if they don't reach an agreement? Okay, what else? More comments? Okay, okay, that's very good. Some of them you are mentioning war, and other ones to keep the blockade of Hormuz. Okay, that be careful because higher oil revenue, this kind of things is not the partner, it's the consequence, economy impact. This is the consequence of the partner. The partner is what you mentioned before, exactly. War or keep the blockade of Hormuz. Very clear. Now, let me know, what is the partner of the US? Write down the BATNA of the US. War. Losing face is the consequence, not the BATNA, okay? War, military, okay? Other sanctions. And what else? What is the US nowadays doing? The blockade the Strait of Hormuz, right? Exactly. Keeping the situation, blockade of the Strait of Hormuz, right? It's very clear, blockade, exactly. If you see Iran and the US, they have the same BATNA, exactly the same. War, or depending on the moment of the negotiation, nowadays is blockade of the Strait of Hormuz. This is the BATNA of both. So they both have the same BATNA. Which one has more leverage in the negotiation? This is more difficult to assess. Okay? So, like in business, when the negotiation gets complex, the BATNA is also complex. Okay? So, to move on, for me, it's very important that you keep and you understand the concept of alternative. And the next time that you go to a negotiation, write down what do you think that is your BATNA and the other side's BATNA. You also need to make an assessment of the other sides, okay? And this is what I mentioned before. You have the agreement or your BATNA, your walk away position. And then, this is very important, and I like that. Please read it because it's very important. What is the best approach to the negotiation? To alter the perception of your counterparty in order that he believes that his BATNA is worse than doing a deal with you. Why? Because the negotiation is also a game of influence, to influence in the other side. So you need to make them believe that their BATNA is worse than doing a deal with you. Okay? Moving on. The zone of possible agreement. What is the zone of possible agreement? The zone of possible agreement is the area where you can reach a deal. Okay? That is the upper limits of the zone of possible agreement and the lower limits of the zone of possible agreement. And the edge of the zone of possible agreement is each side BATNA. Like that. Okay? So the edge of the SOPA is the seller's BATNA. Okay? If, for example, he's selling a house, the offer that he has for another buyer. What is the BATNA of the buyer? What do you think the BATNA of the buyer will be? The price of other similar house. So they have to find a gap in the middle where the negotiation is possible. This is what we call the zone of possible agreement, okay? As I said before, I would like to have time when we finish to give you a very simple example to understand that. And then we move to the next point that is very important for me that you understand that, okay? That is the interest and positions. And from my point of view, after this lecture, if you are able to identify what is an interest and what is a position and negotiate based on interests, the outcome of the lecture is amazing. With that is fantastic. I mean, that's a very good outcome because it changed the way that you negotiate. What is a position? And as I said, this is something that you have to write down in your tactical plan, okay? We are still in step 1, okay? We are discussing how to prepare the negotiation. So this is part of the preparation. Positions. This is what you are asking, your position, what you put on the table. For example, my price is 50K. This is a position. I want delivery in 3 weeks. 3 weeks is the position. I want 3 years of contract. This is the position. Okay? It's like an anchor of the negotiation. But what is the interest? And this is a different topic. Interests are the underlying issues, concerns, worries that you really need. Okay? You don't express or disclose your interests. You disclose your positions. Your interests, normally not. Like with the BATNA, you keep them hidden. And also the other side will try to protect his information about their main interest. Therefore, understanding both sides' interests, particularly when they are different, provides the key for a successful negotiation. So, let me give you now a few examples. Simple one. For example, you are going to, this is a negotiation between the tenant and the landlord to rent an apartment, okay? Renting an apartment. Now, the landlord is asking 6 months of rent as a deposit, as a guarantee, right? So, if the landlord is asking 6 months or 12 months of guarantee, the position is, let's say, 12 months of guarantee, of deposit. This is the position. Let me know, what may be the interest behind that position of the landlord? What is his concern? And let me see the chat box. Come on. More, default payment, what else? Payment on time, financial security, very well done. Exactly, it's financial security, payment on time. The concern, the interest is, I want to have financial security. I want 6 months deposit. Then the position, this is the interest, okay? Now, very important. There are two ways to negotiate. It's what we call positional negotiation when you only discuss the positions. For example, the landlord is asking 12 and the tenant will say, no, I give you 3. This is a positional bargaining. Now, let me know if your assumption is that security, financial security, is the main concern of the landlord. Do you think that you could offer the landlord something interesting for him in order that he feels security without the need of negotiating how many months? What kind of things you could discuss with him, with the landlord? Bank security, trust, what else? Guarantees, guarantor, very well done. Security check. What else? Think about something that is interesting. What if you work for a very big corporation, multinational, and you give a letter of reference to the landlord? Or from a very good bank about your financial position there? Let me know. Do you think that this is interesting for the landlord or not? What do you think? Is that interesting or not? If his main concern is security? Of course, yes. So, exactly reference from previous landlords. This kind of things is what we call interest-based negotiations, right? When you help, look at this, you mentioned very well, in this case, to build trust, right? Then, this is about a landlord. Let's make another example. And to make this example, I'm going to discuss, for example, delivery. If the position is, I am a manufacturer, and I'm saying, I want delivery in 3 weeks. That is very fast in that case. What could be the interest behind a short delivery for a manufacturer? What do you think could be? There are many interests. Production schedule, commitments, exactly, he has commitments. For example, he has a client or a customer waiting and he has to produce on time. So time could be, in this case, the main interest of the manufacturer. More example, when you are talking about, we change now to the supplier, and the supplier wants more volume. He wants to sell more volume to you. What do you think would be the interest of the supplier if he wants to discuss a large order? What problem he could have, the supplier? No, it's not more gains. What do you think? Overstock, exactly. So the problem could be overstock. So this is the kind of things that you have to bear in mind, okay? The interest, the worries, or build long-term customer base, that is also interesting. So when someone, for example, you are discussing payment terms and someone is asking 90% or 80% upfront, obviously you can think, okay, if the payment terms is the main worry, they have a cash flow problem, right? So this is the kind of things that you have to discuss when you make a proper interest matrix. And now I want you to have a look to this, because interest And positions are like that. This is a real drawing coming from one of our students that we always use. Interests are always hidden, okay, under the sea. Positions is what you see. I want 3 weeks delivery, okay? I want 5 years contract. I want a deposit of 6 months. The interest that could be cash flow, long-term revenue, like we discussed, security, the interest, you don't see them, okay? You need to make assumptions about them. Then, this is very important. You have to write down your interest, the interest of your company, for example, to gain market share, to gain better position, or to fight with my competitors, or to take a competitor apart. These kind of things, your interest, to release stock, your interest, you have to write down. You have to make the same with the other side's interest. Write down. And also be careful with that. The interest can be common, okay? For example, both sides are, the interest of both sides is the long-term relationship between each other. This is a common interest, something to explore. Then complementary interest that could be different but not in conflict could be, okay, one side need to release stock. The other side needs early delivery. Okay, fine. They have different interests, but they are not in conflict. Let's go to another example. The main interest of both is price. In that case, oppose. Conflicting interest, more difficult to deal with, okay? Then the interest can be tangible or intangible. What kind of interest could be intangible? You mentioned when we were discussing the word, losing your face, reputation, relationships, ego. These kind of things are intangible interests, okay? That you can see many times in negotiation. I would say almost in every single negotiation, you have intangible interests. And then can be monetary, that could be money, and non-monetary. I mean, sometimes, well, almost in every single negotiation, when this multiple issue, you have non-monetary interest. And then remember one thing. Do you really think that when you are negotiating, let's say with the sales director of a company, are you sure that the interest, the individual interest of the sales director is the same than the interest of his company, the company that he works for? What do you think? Is always the same interest or could differ? Let me know. I want to see the chat. Exactly, it could differ. So you have to be very careful with that, guys. When you negotiate with a company, sometimes the individual and the company are not exactly aligned. They could have differing interests, okay? So moving on to the next slide. What you have to do is to make an interest matrix. And because I like the pictures, images, in order that you understand it better, this is an interest matrix. You have to list down your interests and your other side's interest and negotiate based on that, right? And now I will show you 2 examples to illustrate that it's easier for you to follow on. Look at this. I'm going to share something interesting for you to understand the interest, okay? And it's this one. 1 second, because it takes a bit of time. Here we go. Okay, we are sharing, right? So look at this, because this is a very, I will put it bigger. Okay, this is a case study that we used to do in the business school, and it's based on a real case, right? This is a negotiation between 2 companies of the car sharing industry, okay? This industry, this business that you can rent a car for 30 minutes, 45 minutes to use it and leave it, okay? Car sharing. This is a case that was a negotiation that took place in 2011 between 2 companies that you see there, is Drive Now and Car2Go. Drive Now, it's a JV between BMW and Sixt. Car2Go is another JV between Daimler and Europcar, right? They are competitors. They are competing. And because the strong competition that they had between both of them and in the same cities, in the same locations, they had to increase the marketing expenses a lot, and the profit margins were going down, down, down because of the fierce and strong competition between both companies. Then the negotiation between both was because they were exploring the possibility to merge. Okay, it was a potential merge of both companies. And look at this. This is a real interest matrix. If you see here, they are writing down Drive Now. What are the main interests of Drive Now? And in this case, they did very well. They split the interest matrix into the two members of the JV. That is very well done. But let's say Drive Now, the main interest, leading market position, profitability, reduce the marketing expense, increase production. If you go to Car2Go, they have the same interest, very similar. You see, profitability, keeping the market share, expand to other cities, reduce operation, logistics, and parking fee. So they are similar interests. This is what you can see and what you have to do in real negotiations, like they did here. Write down the interest of your side. Let's say that you are Drive Now, you list down your interest, and you have to make the assumption of what may be the interest of Car2Go. And because this is a tactical plan, what you can see here is an example, this is why I'm sharing it. Look at the BATNA. It's what is highlighted in yellow, and below the consequences. What is the BATNA of Drive Now if they don't reach an agreement with Car2Go? Very simple. Continue the competition. And the BATNA of Car2Go? The same. Continue the competition. The consequences, look at this. Bad consequences for both, okay? Because they will decrease profitability and they will maintain the high marketing expenses, right? And they will both lose market share. So in that case, if you have a look to this BATNA, it's very clear that the BATNA of both, what do you think? Do they have a strong or a weak BATNA? What do you think of both? Is it strong or weak? Use the chat box. Let me know. What do you think? Weak? Lubna is saying strong, weak, 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 weak. Exactly. It's weak. You mentioned very well because continue competition is the BATNA and is a bad option for both, right? So the interest is very clear. They both want that. The terms and condition of the merge is not written here because these are the positions. This is another subject. We only write here the interest, right? Have a look to this because this is a tactical plan. Look at this. They made the interest matrix. Very well done, by the way. They made the BATNA analysis. Very well. They plan an incentive statement that is the opening speech in the negotiation. Very well. This is image that they share. Look at this. Team roles. They are planning the role of each member and the responsibilities of each member in the negotiation. This is what you have to do when you make a tactical plan. You see, the leader of the negotiation, the observer, the summarizer, these are the roles in the negotiation team, okay? And what each member is going to do. Then they also plan the negotiation timeline approximately when you have to negotiate what are you going to do and when. Remember what I discussed about the list of assumptions. You can see here the list and also the tactics that they are going to implement during the negotiation, okay? For example, if this piece of paper has been done by Drive Now, they are saying here, in competing cities, based on our assumption, Car2Go doesn't want to lose any market share. This is an assumption that you are doing, okay? And then the list of key issues in the negotiation, okay? These are the positions, the topics that they have to negotiate, okay? And then they are also exploring value creation areas. And finally, they include, this is another topic that we don't have time today, a multiple offer with two options, option A and option B. By the way, this is a very powerful tool, the multiple options. When you give two options to the other side that are similar, in order that they have to choose which one they prefer to negotiate about. Very powerful tool, okay? This is why during the workshops, we insist a lot to practice that tactic, the multiple offers, right? So Let me share with you another example that I really like, okay? Because it's very easy to see, and it's what we have been discussing before, okay? And then I will move on to the next steps because I want to be on time in the agenda. Okay. This is a case that we normally do, and this is very interesting. We mentioned before that, okay? This case is between a manufacturer. Let's go here. It's about two companies. Partco is the supplier, Protco is the manufacturer, okay? It's a case where they have to negotiate the delivery time of a component, right? In this case, the manufacturer is under time pressure because he has a big order from one of his customers, right? And what happens that the supplier is short of cash. So one is short of cash, the other one has time pressure. The position is delivery within 3 weeks, the new position. Look at this. Here, the position is of the manufacturer, I want you to deliver in 3 weeks. This is a position. But if we want to make an interest matrix, this is an interest matrix. Have a look to that. Supplier, what is the main interest of the supplier? Cash and reduce stock. What is the main interest of the manufacturer? Acquisition of stock and avoid penalty terms because of his contract. Now, in the chat box, let me know. The position is only, I won't deliver in 3 weeks because the interests are hidden, okay? But bearing in mind those interests, do you think that this negotiation has a possibility to have a good deal or not? Do you think that the interests are in conflict or not? Exactly, it's a negotiation where we can have a deal, yes? Yes, why? Because the interests are complementary. There is no conflict, exactly. The positions could be conflicting because one will say 3 weeks. The supplier will say, no, my standard delivery has been 7 weeks, 6 to 7 weeks. Positions are 3, 6 to 7. But the interests behind are those ones. So it's better not to negotiate about positions, negotiate thinking about the interests, right? And it can be a good deal. Exactly, it can be a very good deal. So moving on, because we are running out of time, we already addressed this topic that is very important. And now I will move on to the slides that we were discussing before. Here we go to finish with my 5 steps process of the negotiation. So just to recap a bit, I will go back, recap, and the tactical plan, as I mentioned before, you have to make the interest matrix. We have seen few examples, the partner analysis, and the zone of possible agreement, team selection, team organization, tactics, methods, list of assumptions. All of that must be in the tactical plan, okay? So once you have done that, you have done a good preparation, you have to move to the step 2 of the negotiation process. And the step 2 is very important, guys, because when you have prepared the negotiation, you should not go immediately to say, okay, 3 weeks I think is not acceptable. I will offer you maybe 5 weeks. Not at all, okay? It's very important, the step 2. The step 2, we call it, as you have seen before, information exchange. Before you put positions on the table, you need to gain information about the other side. For example, if in this case, manufacturer and supplier has been working together for a long time, and the manufacturer is asking delivery in 3 weeks, shall you immediately make a counteroffer, or what do you think that you should do? What do you think that you should do? Let me know. What shall you do in that situation? To put a position on the table or what? Julia is very well. Exactly. Ask why. Asking why. That's exactly that. Asking why. Before you go into positions, you have to gain information about the other side. So, what is the step 2 of the negotiation process? Going back, exactly that. Is the step of the negotiation where you need to keep diminishing the information asymmetry. Before you put positions on the table, you need to exchange information. The other side has to deliver information to you, You also need to gain information from the other side. How? Informal conversations between both, okay? Telephone conversations. Sometimes, as you know, depending on the place where you do business, it's very common before you go into a negotiation to have an informal lunch together or having a coffee in a more relaxed atmosphere, okay? To know each other. This is exactly for that. The step two has three objectives. Crucial for a successful, guys, negotiation. Crucial that are: number one, build trust, build rapport to create a proper atmosphere to share value, right? Why? It's something in psychology that we call the liking principle or the similarity principle that is very important and influence all of that. If you like someone, if you are negotiating with someone in front of you and you have the same beliefs or same concerns or you like him or her, it's always easier to have a good negotiation between each other, okay? Because if you like someone, you are better prepared to release value to someone, to this person. If you have someone in front of you that you don't trust and you don't like, you don't want to deliver information or deliver value. This is why it's so important, the big word in negotiation, that is trust, okay? You need to build trust with the other side. If you don't build trust, it's very difficult to negotiate, right? And also to create the proper atmosphere to share value between both, okay? Then, very important, sorry, I'm going back, very important. Number two, gathering information about the other side. During the step two, you need to make questions, indirect questions, to have a conversation, friendly conversation, to test your assumptions from step one, okay? For example, in the example that I gave before of the supply chain case, you need to understand why he's asking 6 months, right? Or in the car sharing business, you need to explore, okay, what could be the main concern of the other side? The profit margins, the market share, or maybe the main concern was the marketing costs. Okay, during step two, go and do it. Okay, if you go directly to business and say, no, let's go down to business. I offer you 4 weeks. Mistake. You lose the opportunity to diminish information asymmetry. Okay, and then finally, number 3 is signaling expectations and leverage. During this step, negotiators normally show if they feel strong or if they feel weak, okay? If you feel weak, you should never disclose that, okay? Never, ever. But if you feel strong, it's a good moment, it's the best moment to do it. In step 2, when you begin to signal your expectations and your leverage. So, please, and we're about to finish because it's 45 minutes and then we go to the Q&A. Very important. For the next negotiation that you face in real life, okay? It's very important. Before you put the positions on the table, spend time gathering information about the other side. Don't go directly from step 1 to step 3, okay? Spend time and dedicate time for step 2, building trust with the other side and gaining information, right? Then, when you already have information enough, is when you go to the step 3. And this is when you put the positions on the table. Is when you begin to negotiate. In that case, is when you put the price on the table, for example. And in the step 3 is when you have to decide your strategy. It depends on many factors, and because we don't have time in a lecture of 45 minutes, but it's very important to have a look to these 4 elements that I wrote there for you. Your tactics and strategies must be decided based on these 4 criteria. How important is the relationship? How strong or weak is the conflict? What is your leverage in the negotiation? What are the styles, competitive and cooperative? And what is the type of negotiation? Integrative, so you can create value, or purely distributive, you cannot create value. So this is the key elements, and very important. 3 questions that you always need to ask yourself. Shall I make the first bid? Or shall I wait the other side to open the negotiation? That depends on the information, okay? Depends on information. If you have enough information about the other side, open. If you don't have, wait for them to open. Then, question B, what should be my first bid, my first offer. This is always very difficult in negotiations, okay? A very important tip for that, the maximum that you can justify, okay? Every time that you give offers, justify, give criteria, explain why you are offering that price, right? Or why you are offering 3 weeks, or why you are demanding 6 weeks. And number three, concessions. And this is what we call qualified giving in negotiations. That is very important. If you have two things that do with the pen, you have something important for you, or maybe it's something that is not important, that is this pen, and then you can give that to the other side and ask the other side to give something in exchange, another one, different, okay? So this is what we call qualified giving. You give something and you ask something in return. Very important to plan what you would like to give away and what you would like to get in exchange, okay? And then, and we are going to finish now, during the step three is when you begin to make offers, counter offers, and to develop your tactics, okay? And then, tactics in this phase, we don't have time, obviously, but there are plenty of tactics, and you can see here examples, okay? Using anchors, building trust, asking why, the difficult box, mitigate constraints, all of that are tactics, right? That you can see, obviously, someone like this one, ultimatums, very common, by the way, with the war nowadays between Iran and the US. They play with ultimatums, contingency contracts. So there are plenty of tactics that you can find in the literature and surveys and studies about negotiation skills, right? And going back to the, I want to go back to the steps, okay, here, because this is the last part. As we mentioned, we have addressed preparation. I also gave you a template to prepare the negotiations. I also show you a tactical plan as an example of the car merger and the supply chain. Then information, and during the preparation, please don't forget these topics, these two topics, okay? BATNA and interest matrix, very important. Then information exchange phase. Then you go into the step three, that is developing the strategy. And finally, step four is when you close the negotiation. And only one comment. In the step four is the last phase of the negotiation, is when you are going to close the negotiation, right? So in this case, it's very important that you also can face tactics like ultimatums, or when someone is asking just at the very end something more in the negotiation. These are typical ones. But the most important thing to do in step four is to summarize the deal, please. It's very common mistake to walk away from the meeting room thinking that you have a deal and you forgot one issue, or there is a misunderstanding about this other issue. Always with an email, with a piece of paper, something that is non-binding, but always when you finish the negotiation, what you have to do is write down, okay, let's clarify. We have a deal in price, yes, this price. In delivery, this delivery. In contract length, this one. Write down, share it, and double check, okay? And finally, the step five, that is also very important, is to review, to understand from your experience and from your company's experience. Okay? So we are exactly that. It's 9 minutes past 6. So I think that I exceeded in 8 minutes, which is not that bad. So I will leave it now to Josen to arrange the Q&A and to continue.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Professor. That's a very detailed, informative, and engaging session. Thank you very much. Of course, we would like to ask everybody if you have any question to Professor Oscar, this will be the right time to do it. Let me just share my screen now. Anyone who would like to ask question, I can unmute you if you wish to, or we can proceed by chatting using the chat box for your question. All right, we have questions now, Professor. Is there any
Yes.
difference in the approach if the negotiations are happening through the middleman, presumably having its own agenda and interest?
Well, let me check. Yes, here. We also have Enrique, who is also holding the hand on to make a question.
Okay.
Uh, yes, through the middleman, obviously, and I have also another question that is, what is the best book? I will give you my opinion. I will give you my opinion. Okay, so when you negotiate with a middleman, yes, it's different. Why? I am a negotiator, I'm a lawyer. Normally, I'm not like a middleman, but I'm negotiating on behalf of someone else. So if you are, for example, in my case, a lawyer, you have your interest, of course, and also the interest of your client when you are negotiating, right? So obviously it's different when you negotiate something, for example, you are the CEO of your company or you are the lawyer of the advisor of the company. It's different because also there is an element that is very important, reputation. My reputation as a negotiator is important. So if I have to negotiate on behalf of someone, my in the interest matrix is also included my personal reputation. If your question is with a middleman, let's say with an arbitration, and this is different arbitration when you have or mediation with a mediator, yes, it's different, okay? But when we face that topic, the difference between negotiation and mediation is a different topic, it's a different subject, but obviously, there is a big difference. The mediator, the middleman, has all the information about bad of interest of one side, A, and all the bad interest of the other side, B, because it's the mediator. So it's a different role. It's not exactly a negotiation, but it's different, of course, yes. It's because the
Okay.
mediator has more information, right? So, more questions? I mean,
All right. We'll put in Enrique, Professor Oscar.
yes.
Enrique will allow you to speak. If you have a question to Professor Oscar, please go ahead.
No, I don't listen. Maybe he's muted.
All right. Enrique, you're given now the.
Yeah, maybe he's muted, yeah.
All right. Sure.
Okay, moving to another
You're
question.
we go to the other question, please, Professor. There's a lot of it right now,
There's a
but
lot
let
of
me
it, so
just.
I think that I will choose some of them because we only have 15 minutes.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
okay. We can manage. Go ahead, Professor. Can you summarize the team roles recommended in a negotiation from
Well,
Victoria?
with the team roles, I would say that there are four main roles. The first one is the leader of the negotiation. Okay, so you always need to have someone who is leading the negotiation. Okay, then this is role number one, leader. Role number two, observer. Always is important that someone who is not talking is there observing because he can be more focused on what is happening around. Okay. If you are talking and in the middle of the negotiation, you can lose some of the information, for example, than the non-verbal information, like the body language, right? So the observer is also very important. The specialist, also important. If you are dealing or negotiating a financial matter, the financial expert, of course. If you are negotiating a legal matter, the lawyer. If you are negotiating about procurement, someone from the procurement department. This is the specialist, okay? And also, we always recommend to have a summarizer. That is the person who will be summarizing the deal, okay? This is the main roles from the McCarthy and Hay. That is the book that is discussing this topic about the team roles in the negotiation, okay?
All right, Professor.
So,
Next question: what is the best action if there's no deal?
I mean, if there is no deal, you go to your partner, right? This is very important, guys. Sometimes the no deal is better than the deal or the potential deal that you have in front of you. Is that clear? And sometimes when we are negotiating, we have this tunnel vision and we don't see out. I have seen many mistakes when you are too committed to sign a deal with the person in front of you, but you don't realize that you have a better alternative out of the negotiation. So you always need to be prepared for a no deal, for a walk away position, okay? It should be always on the table. More questions?
All right, let's go. How much time should be given to a negotiation?
Well, it depends.
Yeah.
It depends. It depends because obviously time pressure is part of the negotiation. There are many negotiations under time pressure. Okay. For example, in the labor disputes here in Spain, you have a mandatory mediation before the court case, and the judge normally is giving you like 5 minutes. I mean, it's like it's a lot of pressure on the lawyers. So you have 5 minutes to reach a deal, and it's the judge, the big boss, okay? Because they have a lot of hearings in the same morning. So sometimes time pressure is an element. And obviously, I don't want to go back again to the Iran and US example, but again, you have another example of time pressure because you have seen how from the US they were giving ultimatums to the other side. Okay, so again, time pressure is part of the negotiation.
Okay. I think this is from the HR point of view, Professor. Should I make the first bid in a salary negotiation as a candidate?
There is no answer to that that works in every single case. Okay, if you are a candidate, normally you don't know the BATNA of the company. You don't know approximately how much will be the cost of an alternative candidate, or what is the budget of the company for your position. This is information asymmetry again. You don't know. If you don't know, it's better to wait for them to make the offer. But if for any circumstances you have plenty or enough information about how much is going to cost, I mean, what is going to be the cost of the company to hire something similar with your profile, or if you know that there is no potential candidates like you or few of them, in that case, open the negotiation with the maximum that you can justify. Okay?
All right.
More questions.
If buying two properties and negotiating the best price with a real estate agent and she knows my maximum limit, what would be the best tactic to apply properties are similar?
In properties of similar is what we call distributive negotiations, when it's only about price. Okay, so in those situations where you cannot create value, the main tip would be that if you're going to open the negotiation, try to be ambitious. Okay, always ambitious. And if you are going to sell, check the standards. Okay, the market standards. When you have to make a counter offer, make your preparation to see what is the standard in the market, in order that you can make a proper counter offer. Okay, it's about information again. More
Okay.
questions.
All right. I think Enrique just typed in his commentary, Professor. The examples given were focused on just two sides, but let's say there's more stakeholders involved. From your experience, is it better that every part involved is in the same room, or better than have meetings individually? That's what Enrique wants to say earlier.
It's a brilliant question, but it depends. It
Mm-hmm.
depends on many factors. Why? As I mentioned before, in the example that I gave you, we had four involved. Okay, it was the JV with two elements and the JV with another two elements. It was a negotiation with four people, four companies involved. In situations like that, there is two elements that are important. First of all, relationships and the flow of the information and the communication. If the three of them had a good relationship and the flow of the negotiation and the communication is good, and if there is no issues about ego or confrontations, three of them can be in the same meeting, of course. But then it's also a decision that is based on your approach to the information, okay? Depending on what kind of information you want to see around. If you prefer to hide information, it's better to have one negotiation with one side and a second one with the other side. Depends on the information, if you want the information going around or not. And also depend, as I said, on the characters, the individuals who are going to be in the meeting, the relationship between each other, and the characters of each of them. If they are competitive, or if they are not that competitive, if they are more cooperative, depend on these factors.
Okay. A few more questions, Professor. What do you suggest for a win-win situation or negotiation? Always look for a win or lose, or what is your opinion?
We don't like this topic of win-win because it comes from all. We don't like that, okay, at all, okay. What I mean with that is that in a negotiation, you always must give, I mentioned before, the impression to the other side that what he's getting is good for him, okay, or for her. It's an influence, a strategy of influence. So you have to give the message to the other side that something that is very good for you, they must believe that is also good for them. But it's a perception, guys. Maybe at the beginning they don't have that perception, but you need to work with the strategies of influence in order that they think that they are getting their targets, their objective, but in real situation, they are doing what you want them to do. Okay? So it's a game of influence, right?
Okay.
More questions.
How should a negotiator adjust their strategy when they have less leverage, especially when the other side knows it?
I mean, It's a good question. There is a thinking about that, and I'm going back to the other question. Someone was asking, what is one of the best books that you would recommend? Why I'm going to the other question? Because it's easier to answer this question. There is a book that is called Negotiation Genius. Okay, and maybe then we can share the reference. Is Deepak Malhotra. This is the author. And I like that book to answer that question about how to negotiate from weakness because they have a specific part of the book where they explain how to negotiate when you feel in a very weak position. And even worse, if the other side knows that you are in a weak position, okay? There are specific tactics about that. First of all, it's not the same if they know that you are weak or if they know. If they don't know that you are in a weak position, there is two elements that are very important. Never disclose your weakness, never ever, and be careful because you can give the perception to the other side that you feel weak in the way that you speak, in your body language, in the wording that you are using. So try always to be clear and never show your weakness. Number two, sometimes we think that we are in a weak position, but could be a wrong assumption. So be careful with that because I've been in a situation, in a real one, in a real negotiation. It was a labor dispute where I thought that I was in a very weak position. And suddenly, in step three, I realized that the other side was also thinking that he was in a very weak position. So finally, in step three, we both faced a situation where we both thought that we were in a weak position. And then in that book, in Negotiation Genius, they mention an example. We don't have time now, but when the author of the book was feeling in a very weak position and the other side knew about that, do you know what he did? Asking for help to the other side in a very honest way. Say, okay, I don't have any other alternatives, but I would love to work with you because it was a recruitment, an interview, and he was asking for help. Okay, so but this is please an extreme tactic. Okay, don't take it as a rule. Okay, only in the extreme situations.
Okay. I want to thank Muhammad Al Momen. He put in the details of the book, sir. Negotiation Genius. Thank you, Muhammad.
Yes, thank you
Uh,
very much.
Last question, Professor. How should a negotiator respond when it becomes clear that the person on the other side does not have the authority to approve or finalize the agreement?
At the very beginning, Muhammad, this is a very common situation, and we always discuss that in the workshops. Okay, during the preparation phase and also in step two, it's very important that you check with the other side the authority or lack of authority to sign the deal. Okay, because it can be extremely disruptive when you have been negotiating for 1 hour and at the very end you think that you have a deal and the other side is going to say, okay, yes, we have a deal, but I have to escalate to my CEO or I have to double check with. This is something that must be agreed at the beginning of the negotiation. So, in other words, the process of the negotiation, so how you are going to negotiate, must be agreed and discussed at the beginning of the negotiation. And one of the topics that you have to discuss is exactly that authority to close the deal. Okay?
Okay. Now, if you want to see more of Professor Oscar, you can see him actually doing the elective part of the negotiation skills from our global MBA program. Professor, just to have a few words about our elective for the MBA and the other things that you have been doing with the University of Manchester, what do you think is the importance of negotiation skills right now for the MBA candidates who wish to do the program or for those alumni already of the MBA?
Well, this is very important. First of all, it's a crucial topic for business. Crucial. Okay, it's very important to have proper training about negotiation skills. Very important for your real life and for your business. Okay, and to train negotiation skills, it's very important to do it with theory and practice and to apply theory to practice is what we do during the MBA, during the workshops, during the global program. From my point of view, and we also do it that is learning by doing. It's very important that you practice, you learn, you get the whole theory of negotiation, reading the proper books, doing like we are discussing an MBA, getting proper training, and then to practice and learn during your practice. You will see how you can improve your negotiation training if you combine both. Theory, very important, learning, and then practicing, okay? It's both, a combination of both.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Professor Oscar. It's been truly an honor, sir. We're hoping to see you again once here in Dubai. Thank you very much. And
It's
then
my
just to
pleasure.
close this tonight's session, for those of you who want to recommend or your friends or colleague onto the next step, you can refer a friend and enjoy a 10% tuition fee discount and share. And the best part of that actually would be you'll be also rewarded too. Share the opportunity, grow together, and be Manchester. Now, this have concluded the first batch of our masterclass series for this month. We're looking forward to see you again on our next batches coming in. We will let you know when is that going to happen. But for the meantime, if you want to learn about the MBA program and other programs that we offer here at the University of Manchester, Dubai, you can scan the QR code for a one-to-one counseling happening tomorrow at 4 p.m. and Friday after that at 7 p.m. Another that after a week or so from May 7th and 14th at 7 p.m. We would really want you to join and have the experience of that. And also, we're going to be having an information session happening for the Global Executive MBA taking place on May 19th at 7:30 p.m. If you want to be a part of that, learn from our students and alumni, please scan the QR code for more information. And for those of you actually earlier asking if we can share the presentation, we will be having the full video of the recording of Professor Oscar's negotiation skill session in our YouTube channel. So please stand by and watch that later on if you missed it, or for other friends that you missed it, and you will learn from Professor Oscar. All right. Once again, if you want to reach us out, you can also call on this number, WhatsApp on this number, and email us at manchester.ac.ae. As you leave today, remember that every conversation is an opportunity to listen better, to think differently, and to create outcomes that matter. Because true negotiation is not about taking more, it's about creating more. Negotiation is just a skill, it's a mindset as well. It's the ability to understand, adapt, and create value in every conversation is what sets great leaders apart. Stronger ideas, stronger impact, stronger future, stronger together. On behalf of our founding director, Randa Besizo, the amazing University of Manchester Dubai team who made it all this possible, thank you, Sam. And of course, our guest for today, Professor Óscar Gómez Monasterio, a true privilege, sir. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you. Thank you.
My name
Thank you.
is
It's been a pleasure.
It's always a pleasure, sir, from our side. My name is Jocelyn Ranyola. Thank you all for joining us tonight. Have a great evening. Keep safe and remember to always to be that change. Until then, masalame, everyone.